guys a special edition of the CBB Central podcast. Figured people were sitting at home, wanted some extra content, so we made it happen. Got our first coach interview of the, the off-season, 2020-21 off-season. Very excited to have Siena head men's basketball coach Carmen Maciariello on the show today. Obviously a special interview for me as a guy who grew up really on Siena basketball, watching that program, and got to know Coach Carmen a little bit over the last couple of months and even about the last year or two. And he's a terrific guy and a really bright future in the coaching business. Won 20 games with Siena this season, finished on a 10-game win streak. So we're definitely excited to have Coach Carmen on the show today. We get to talk a little bit about kind of Siena's trajectory as a program, kind of on the way back. Going to bring back a lot of talent next year after winning the league this year. They have a superstar point guard in Jalen Pickett. And they're going to be a fun program to watch moving forward. So we're happy to bring you this interview. And without further ado, let's get right into it. We're excited to be joined today on the show by Siena head men's basketball coach Carmen Maciariello. Coach Carm just completed his first season as the head coach of the Saints and led his team to their first MAC championship in 10 years. Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Kevin, thanks so much for having me. It's a great time to be on your show. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So first, congrats on that MAC championship. For those that don't know listening, you grew up here in the Capital Region. You played at Siena. You got your coaching start working at Siena. How much does it mean to you personally to be having success early at a place that obviously means a little bit more to you than just another job?
Oh, it's special. It's a chance to experience and give these guys the experience I had as a player. And the best thing about Siena, obviously we have tremendous fans, but our media attention and kind of the microscope we're in, there's reporters basically once a week at our practices. And it's just an opportunity for us to kind of lay the groundwork for hopefully many, many years to come. And just so proud of the guys and their resolve and their work ethic this season. Obviously it's never going to be perfect, and there's always going to be hurdles and roadblocks and potholes, and guys just stayed the course. But for me to be a local guy and growing up here and having a chance to watch Mike Dean and, go to his camps and, at his camps where I was told in fourth grade I should never play basketball again because I stunk, it was, even better. And I know they did that story on me kind of in the summer when I first got the job, but, it's a year and a day since I've been the head coach at Siena, and I couldn't be happier. It's a dream come true.
And, for people that don't know about Siena basketball, I kind of grew up on it as well. And it's just kind of a unique program. Lots of fan and media attention, as you kind of alluded to. They play in a downtown arena, 7,000 people at home games. For those that aren't familiar, kind of give them the 1-minute tour of what Siena basketball is, because it's a lot different than a lot of mid-major programs.
Yeah, I think it first starts with just the academic piece. It's a liberal arts school that's really centered around the development of the student. And with that passion for the student and the growth, obviously it's a Franciscan school. So, there are friars on campus. There is a little bit of a religious component where, students have to take basically a year of religious studies in one aspect or another. But the following is just great. We have so many season ticket holders and so many fans. I mean, I come out of my house today and a gentleman comes up to me and, obviously social distancing, right? He's got to be 6 feet away, but he's talking about the great season and, he can't wait for next year. And, so sorry it had to end the way it ended. But I said, hey, we're in a good spot. We control what we control. But, Siena is just a special place because of, the love and how it was built. It's always been kind of a working man's job, and guys have come in and hit the ground running. And, when you put in the time and you work and you do things the right way, I think this community supports that because they see the work ethic and they see we're not taking any shortcuts.
And obviously your season was cut short, by the coronavirus. You guys had won 10 straight. You were on the way, I think, to a MAC championship. We're 2 wins away from that, official conference championship in the tournament at Atlantic City. So your team's no longer on campus now. It's a recruiting dead period. So what do days look like right now for you and your staff?
Yeah, so we just actually did a Zoom meeting with the staff yesterday, just kind of, talking roster, talking scheduling. But the biggest thing for me is these guys handling their academic component when they're home. Obviously, they're remote learning. So there's, certain professors using Canvas, certain professors using, Google meeting rooms, and then others using obviously this Zoom platform. And we had our meeting on Zoom. And my biggest thing is for my staff to make sure our guys are all in a good place. Gary Harris is on the West Coast. He's in California. So, he's got an 8 a.m. class that meets 2 days a week. He's got to get up at 4:45 to make sure he's logging into his computer and he's up. People haven't really thought about that. But, for me, I think this is just an opportunity for more growth and for more connection and more unity. Now we're, not able to meet with our guys and pop in the office or pop in the cafeteria. We have to, schedule times to talk, and it's not like you're recruiting your guys again, because I don't believe in that. I think if you build meaningful and genuine relationships, guys know you have their best interest in mind. So now it's just about staying connected with them and checking in and having a great kind of lay of the land for their academic components, because different professors are going to have different ways to do things. So just making sure that those guys understand that, and then, giving our guys different things to expand their minds. One of my buddies that I played with at New Hampshire before he transferred to Hofstra to play for Jay Wright, Jay Hernandez, he was doing some live Instagram chats with NBA assistants. So I told my guys to kind of follow them and follow him and get a chance to listen to, different perspectives. I think you can always be growing your mind, even if you can't, be going to the gym or going to the park like you would usually do. This isn't a vacation. This is a chance to show our discipline and our level of connectedness, to be able to kind of grow even more while we're away from each other, but we're still staying connected.
Mm-hmm. Definitely makes sense. So I've heard you say in interviews in the past that you kind of had a plan of action for when you became a head coach. So what types of things go into that planning process for when you finally do get an opportunity? You were an assistant for a long time, worked for a lot of great coaches. So what did that plan look like for when you finally got to take over and have your program of your own?
Yeah. So, always going through this business and kind of navigating, your path. It's never going to be smooth sailing. There's going to be hurdles. There's going to be bumps in the road. And, I was a young assistant at Fairfield, and we had won and went to the Big East at Providence. And I was recruiting Ricky Lito and Chris Dunn and some really good players. And Ed Cooley needed to put me in a different role, even though at one point I was going to be an assistant. He had to put me in the director of ops spot. And, I was hurt by that, but through that you grow. And so I was able to get an opportunity to go with Joe Jones at Boston U. And, so all those experiences you kind of remember, and I just kind of keep a journal, and my philosophy is built off of so many experiences and how people ran their programs and what I liked and what I didn't like. So having started at Siena with Fran McCaffery as his director of ops, and then working for Ed Cooley and working for Joe Jones, and then obviously Jamie and Christian, I get a chance to, see a broader perspective. There's some guys in this business that only work for one coach for, 10, 12 years. And I feel like you're not giving yourself the opportunity to grow as much, because you want to be able to challenge your mind. You want to be able to kind of put your thoughts kind of in the grinder and see what kind of comes out, because every year and every day there's different situations that are being presented. Just like every situation on the court, you can't ad lib, or you can't kind of practice all those situations. You can just kind of give your guys a game plan and, hope they're ready for it, and tell them different things that's going to happen. And from there, you hope they respond because of your training that you did in practice. And this was the same. I have a philosophy document that's about 60 pages with, how I run the office and how I look at recruiting and, how we want to build our program. And, when I first came in, I knew I wanted to save 2 scholarships, just for the fact that you want to be able to take mid-year transfers and maybe have freshmen enroll early, because the prep market, there's a lot of guys that go to do a post-grad year but have already graduated and qualified for college. And that was the case this year. We were lucky to, beat some good schools for Aiden Carpenter, and he enrolled mid-semester this year. And then Dana Tate, leaving Rhode Island, coming to us. So those 2 guys helped us greatly during that 10-game winning streak. Now your scout team, you have guys that are, sometimes better than the opposing team's players. So now your guys have to be challenged in practice and show up. So, basically the philosophy has so many different things in it, but, how I built my staff, what I talk about in recruiting, how I want to, do our community outreach. And so there's a plan for everything. And that's not saying it's always going to be perfect, but at least if you think about those things and you have them down, now it's a lot easier to ad lib or, talk about different scenarios that may come up because of things in the past. And now you're a little more ready. Not saying you're always going to be, 100% ready, but you're going to be 85% as opposed to trying to catch up to speed and you're only 20 or 30% because there's situations you haven't thought about. So I think the more situations you go through, the more situations you think about, when it's all said and done, you're that much more prepared just because you've had that thought in your mind. And all I did was kind of put it on paper and organize it.
So you've worked for coaches that play a lot of different styles. I've heard you specifically talk a lot about attack and finish as kind of being the mantra of Siena basketball. But you've worked for guys like Fran, McCaffery, and Ed Cooley, who I think of as playing very athletic, very aggressive styles of basketball. But also, a guy like Jamie and Christian, who very spaced floor, shooting lots of threes. So how did you kind of formulate what you decided was your kind of offensive and defensive mantra for your program through working for guys with different philosophies?
For sure. And I think it comes down to the way I like to play the game too, and what I valued. And that's another thing that's in my philosophy is, what I look for in each position. I'm a big fan of having guys that can guard multiple positions. For me, what you can guard defensively is what you are. So I'm not really caught up in, he's a point guard. I want 5 guys on the floor that can guard anybody, because I'm more of a defensive coach than an offensive coach. Now, obviously, we had the best offensive team in the MAC this year, led the league in scoring, and we went through some things when I got the job about, the last teams that had won the MAC and what was their DNA. And we talked about, points per game. We talked about efficiency on offense. And obviously, I think if you can control the ball on defense and you can limit 3-point shooting, which we were the best in the league at 3-point field goal percentage defense, now you're able to kind of, get things done. But I loved Ed Cooley's toughness and how he coached his team. I love the fact that, he came from Boston College, where with Al Skinner, he had so many big wings in Craig Smith and Sidney. And then he always had a really good scoring point guard. And that's where, we're trying to get Jalen to even be a little more aggressive. I think when he's more aggressive early in games, it's better for us. But from Ed, I took, that toughness, that physicality, those big interchangeable pieces, because you want to have that kind of sense of toughness and that grit to you. And then with Fran, it was more or less how he approached his players and how he ran his office. College basketball is big business, and Fran's just so smart and meticulous. Everything was very detailed within the staff. I was his director of ops, so, we'd get to a restaurant for pregame meal. Before we even walked in, I had to make sure the salad was on the table for everybody. And after 4 minutes, the pasta had to come out, because he was always worried about the players, or not worried about the players, but making sure the players were in the best way possible to get off their feet. So we had to be in and out of restaurants in 40 minutes. So the detail in that is what I took, and that efficiency. And that's how I try to run my practices. And that's how I try to run our trips with our director of ops, Greg Fahey, who does a great job. And, so from Fran, it was about that. It was also being a player's coach. I could be hard on my staff, but with the players, they have to know what's expected. And then you want to be able to kind of applaud them and pat them on the back and show them and get them to do what you need to do through positivity. And that's the same way Jamie and Christian was. And obviously Ed's really positive too, but I just liked his mindset on the court with his toughness and their attitude that they played with. Whereas Fran's teams more try to outscore you. And I was only there for year one. That was before Edwin came in. It was Kenny Hasbrook's freshman year. But I do think that history of me having knowledge of that has helped with this job too, because I knew all the former players and I have connections to a lot of the guys that come back to the area. And that's what makes it even more special to me, to kind of piggyback on what we talked about earlier. And then Jamie and Christian, like you talked about, I'm not ever going to be a guy, and, I've said it more or less in the news when they ask about, shooting threes. And, I want guys to shoot feet set, good threes. If it's a guy that's open and he can knock down the shot, I want him to have all the confidence in the world to knock it down. But I'm not going to play money ball and, say we need to shoot 34, 35 threes a game and play that, threes for twos. If we're playing a team, a lot of teams too in the MAC want to speed you up and get you to settle for threes. I'm more of a team where we want to get to the foul line. We want to win the battle there. We want to make more free throws than you attempt. We want to be able to get second chance opportunities off the glass. And then we also want to be able to score in transition. When we're doing those things, and in year one, I think we're able to kind of do that from, our rebounding margin, our points per game, and our free throws per game, compared to last year. last year we got to the free throw line 9 times a game. This year, 14. Last year we were -4 on the glass. This year we were plus 4.6. And then points per game last year was 64.6. This year, 72.2. So there was a plan. We executed it. But all those guys in the background for me, all the guys I've worked for that have mentored me, it's kind of a, what fits me and my personality. And I think in year one, that's the biggest thing is, being who I am, letting my personality show, and then, going with it and running with it and being confident in it. And I think that as the year went on, I think it was easier to see in my ball club with how we played and how we defended. And it's just so enjoyable. And that's what was sad about the season ending. I just, like you said, I felt we were, playing the best basketball in the league. We had the most confidence. We were able to win close games. And when it's all said and done, that's how you want to be playing in March.
Right. And looking at that year one, it was kind of a new roster. Obviously, Jalen Pickett was back, but it was very much a different team. You're bringing in 3 transfers and 4 freshmen. There were some struggles early in the year. I think you were 7-9 at one point. How were you able to kind of come together and have a bit of a turnaround after a slow start? Like, what allowed the team to gel down the stretch?
Yeah, I just think, time, right? Time is the biggest thing. You're able to grow your team, and they're able to trust you and know that you have their best thoughts and your best thoughts, and they're connected. And so, we were the 250th least experienced team in the country. So we were a young team as well. Most of these guys are coming back. Obviously, having a guy like Elijah Burns too, I think was a key for us. I mean, he was tremendous for us this year. And, a senior leader like him, and Manny Camper with his work ethic, and Don with his work ethic, and then Jalen, putting in extra time that he wasn't doing as much the, year before early in the season. I think all that stuff helped. And I think the growth of everybody together and just day by day, it's a cumulative effect. And they see that we trust them and they trust us. And so we're able to kind of get our stride at that right point, and everyone talked about our tough road schedule and not winning away from home. And then we were able to win away from home and win close games away from home, which I think was very important too, to just the morale of the ball club. And, we all believed, and that was part of the problem, not problem, but part of the thing I had to kind of navigate, right? As a first-time head coach, inheriting a guy that tested the NBA draft, having some players leave later in the summer to round out a roster. I thought we did a good job of finding the right pieces. I thought Matt Hine was a good defensive piece for us and an older guy that knew how to be coached and knew how to win. I thought Jordan King did a great job for us off the bench. And then Gary Harris, not many people talk about that, but I think we were 13-2 when we inserted him into the starting lineup. So he gave us some energy and some athleticism to able to get us off to some good starts. And, with Gary, you got to let him play through his mistakes because, his talent sometimes trumps those mistakes, and you got to give him confidence. So, when it's all said and done, I think that growth just happens over time, and the guys learn to trust a little more. And, obviously being a first-time head coach, I had to be who I was, and these guys and Jamie and Christian, I followed a successful head coach, and Jamie and Christian is, a great coach, a great friend. And so the guys that were still there had also only won 8 games 2 years ago, and I was their 3rd head coach. So obviously there was going to be some growth, but I think we did a nice job of getting those guys to gel and them believing in us because of how hard we worked and that we genuinely cared about them. And that's how I'll always be. I'm not a guy that's going to be a used car salesman or, pitch different things. I mean, even now, people hear my interviews and, I'm pretty matter of fact, and I'm going to kind of tell you what I think. I'm not ever going to play any games.
One of the major kind of success stories with your team this year was Elijah Burns, as you mentioned. He's grad transfer from Notre Dame. He becomes one of the best players in the MAC, a guy who I think probably should have been a first-team all-league guy. He led the country in true shooting percentage. What do you think adding him meant to your program? But also, do you think his success as a grad transfer will make it easier for you guys to recruit some high major kids coming down to the mid-major level moving forward?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I thought he was a first-team all-conference guy, as I thought Manny and Jalen were. And it's funny, Kevin, at home, Elijah averaged 18 points per game. He shot 67% from the floor, 50% from three, and 88% from the free throw line. So those are pretty big numbers, and that's part of a reason why we were undefeated at home too. Obviously, I hope people that we're trying to schedule aren't listening to this right now, but when it's all said and done, yeah, it should. I mean, you always want to have guys that kind of you believe in, and Elijah hadn't really had a career at Notre Dame, and I remember sitting with him and his family when Jamie left, and we were just talking about my plan for him and how we were going to get him the ball. And, he trusted us and he trusted me. And, that's a big first step. You want to have people trust in you. And that's why this year was so important for us to get this program on solid footing, to show that I could do the job, right? There were obviously people out there that doubted my ability. And, there have been people doubting me my whole life. So when it's all said and done, you just come to work every day. The people that believe in you, and you earn your team's trust. And, Elijah was a big fan of, being able to buy in. And I thought the other thing that helped us, I had to be mindful with his knees and his legs early in the season. And that's why we played a couple games, with 1 day rest. It was the Harvard Bonaventure swing. And then we were able to kind of see how we need to manage him. So it's still a growing process, right? You got to see how these guys adjust and adapt. And then, we did have a nice lull around finals where I could kind of implement some different things and tweak some different things. So, everything there's a plan for. It's not like we're just saying, hey, we don't want to play games in this stretch. We don't want our fans to come to the TU Center and support us. Sometimes you have to strategically, schedule games so you can give your guys the right amount of rest, but also can work on growing them to adjust and to grow your team and grow your program, whether it's an offensive or defensive philosophy that you're trying to instill.
100%. Yeah. And so obviously you also have Jalen Pickett, the star of the show, kind of the face of the program right now, one of the better point guards in mid-major basketball. I know you mentioned you want to continue to improve him as a scorer, but how much of a luxury is it to have a guy who is so proficient in ball screen offense and he's so good in the pick and roll? Like, what does it open up for the rest of your offense when you have a guy like him running the show?
So it's, Jalen's great. And I think that was another reason we took a step is, we started spending a lot more time together. After he had study hall in the mornings, he would come in, we'd watch 10 clips of him just defensively. I didn't really talk offense with him. He has a really good feel offensively. Off the ball defensively, he tends to coast some, and sometimes his ball pressure kind of, is very different. It's not always heavy ball pressure. He takes some time off, some plays off. And so just working with him on that stuff, but his ability to read the defense, and we do a lot with ball screen progression in practice. But then, it's like having a coach on the floor, and I love being able to have guys that talk to me in the huddle and say, hey, let's put them in this situation or that situation. Hey, Carm, they're struggling guarding this flat ball screen. Let's run it with a naked side now, or hey, let's load this side and then let's twist the ball screen. So we have a great dialogue with that. So, oh man, for a first-time head coach to have a high caliber point guard that understands the game and understands what we're trying to do is the world. He's just a great kid. I think he's taken steps, maturing, and I think he still has steps to take. I don't think he's by any means the finished product. So it's just a matter of him, realizing, hey, we can always be growing. And that's one of the things that we talk with all of our guys while they're away from us now too. So that's the one thing is, this opportunity, and I never look at the negatives of anything. I've never been kind of raised that way. I've never been coached that way. I think whatever you're going through, you got to be able to make the positive out of it. And so with this right now, with what the whole country is going through, this is an opportunity for us to show how disciplined we are and how, focused we can be on what we need to get done before we get back to campus and before we get back to work, as they're all working on their own.
And hopefully will be back soon. But, looking ahead to your season next year, your team next year, you do bring back 4 starters, but also bring in a really good freshman class. You mentioned Carpenter already, and then a transfer in Dana Tate from Rhode Island. Can you talk a little bit about what those newcomers could potentially bring to the table for the team?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, love Aiden. It was funny. I've known Aiden since he was a sophomore. Before, he was playing 16 and under with the Expressions ball club on the EYBL circuit, and really just fell in love with his athleticism. He reminded me a lot of a local player that you may be a little young for, but Mark Lyons, who played at Xavier in Arizona. Aiden reminds me a lot of him. He's just long. He's athletic. He's a gym rat, and he's just a great kid. But he's a guy that can pick up 94 feet. He can turn the other team's guard and really give you a heavy dose of ball pressure, so we don't have to worry about Jalen guarding the other team's point guard as much. And he's a guy that can get in the lane, and he's really quick. He'll probably be our quickest player with the ball next year. And then Dana's just a hybrid. You know, he's a guy that can play on the wing. He can come off ball screens and throw a diagonal pass to a corner shooter. He can play the three and post up smaller guys. He can catch lobs. You know, and if times we can probably play him at the 5 if we're playing small, and he could pick up full court and turn you as well. So, you know, two guys that I'm going to probably lean heavily on to throw into the fire. Obviously, we have to wait for Dana to be cleared. I think that'll be kind of after the first semester. Aiden will be ready to go right away. And, you know, just looking for those two guys to come in and do what they do, come to work every single day and make sure, you know, we're holding everybody accountable and just enjoy each other's company, man. That's what it's about. It's never going to be for me ever about records. You know, someone asked me, you know, do I think about winning 20 games my first season? I said, to be honest with you, I don't think about anything except getting better today. You know, we talk about never playing to the score. And there was times this year where I felt like I had to hold our guys accountable because we would win games and I wasn't happy with how we finished games, or I wasn't happy with our execution, or I wasn't happy how we let the other team's best player score 20. Some of those things. And so that kind of set the tone for our guys to understand, hey, it's never going to be about that result. It's going to be about the process and doing everything we have to do to get better. You know, there's games I felt we played and won that we didn't get better in, where there's practices I felt we did get better in. So we want to get better every day, and that's my standard, and that's our team standard. And, you know, with Dana and Aiden coming, you know, I think we got two high-level guys that can come in and help us right away.
All right, last one for you, Coach. You were introduced in the press conference as Siena's head coach exactly a year ago today. When you look back on that first year, what would you say was the most important thing you learned?
To be myself. You know, to let my personality and my people skills and who I am just come out and not be afraid to let people know who I am and how I think and what I need from each of my players and from my staff. I think you have to, you know, demand that every day, and you can't let anyone be complacent. And just, you know, reminding everybody that, hey, this is a job, but this is doing what we love. You know, we're very fortunate to be college basketball coaches. And so let that genuine love for what we're doing here in this profession show. You know, we talk about everyday eating. So we're going to live with enthusiasm, appreciation, and toughness. And that toughness is both mental, physical, and emotional. And we got to show that resolve right now. You know, obviously tough times, but it's a chance for us to show our character and let that character shine through.
Coach Carm, we appreciate you hopping on the show. It was a pleasure talking with you. You know, stay safe. Hopefully we'll be through this thing sooner rather than later.
Appreciate you, Kevin. Thanks so much, man. You do a great job. Love your stuff.
Thanks, Coach.
And there you have it, folks. We always appreciate Coach Carm and all the coaches who join the show for their time. Obviously, they have all other things they can be doing, even with the recruiting dead period. There's lots of recruiting to be done. Plenty of transfers out on the market, so we appreciate Carm taking a few minutes, chatting with us, and talking about the direction of his program and talking about, you know, his path as a coach. He's obviously worked for some really great people, really smart guy, as I said at the top. So we'll hopefully have several more coach interviews throughout the spring and summer, in addition to our regularly scheduled programming. So we appreciate you all listening. Hope everyone is doing well. If you have any coaches you want to see on the show, any particular guests you're looking for, shoot us a DM. Maybe we can make it happen. So we always appreciate you joining us, and have a great week.